What is up, guys? Welcome to the Being Beautifully Honest podcast and channel. Thanks for being here, being subbed. If you're not, hit the button. And if you're listening on YouTube, hit the like. It's like walking in the room and hitting that light switch. Let's brighten up the place and get into the politics and BS. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I know I haven't done a whole lot in the past couple of weeks when it comes to this, and there has literally been something multiple times a day. We know that the DNC, their 4 nights, they just wrapped up on Thursday night this week. So I thought I would kick it off with my commentary as I get back into some things that I want to share in this politics and BS arena, is the differences between the two conventions, the RNC, which I did not watch, and to be quite honest with you, the DNC. I did not watch all of those nights either, but I just happened to watch the final night, and I was going to live stream it, but I just had a whole lot going on and I wasn't able to do so. But I digress. Just seeing this and seeing the differences between the two, it really is no question in my mind as to why you had so many people, not only that spoke at the DNC, that were registered Republicans and never thought in their wildest dreams that they would ever be in attendance at a Democratic National Convention, but also those who were in attendance. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen because I just thought this was really interesting. And I thought it was good for people to know, especially those who didn't watch either of the conventions and may have just seen a few clips here and there. Now, while this isn't going to be the full conventions of either, I just thought that this one was really fitting. So I want to share this. This is actually from Morning Joe on MSNBC. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen and go ahead and get into it. All right.
And we kick things off with a look at the competing messages from the two candidates for President of the United States.
I see an America where we hold fast to the fearless belief that built our nation.
We are indeed a nation in decline.
It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided by optimism.
It's a massive invasion at our southern border that has spread misery, crime, poverty, disease, and
like, listen to his messages. Now, we know that the news, it always harps on the stuff that's bad and the stuff that's negative. We know that the news does not report the good things that are happening, right? But this has been his whole shtick all along, to play on the fears of the ignorant and the angry. So to hear the things that are coming out of his mouth, if anyone's listening to that, it's those who are ignorant that think that that's all that's going on, and actually and understood why, or understandable why, those who are angry, those who are going through things personally in their own lives, and they're looking for somebody to blame for the reasons that they're going through everything. And we already know that the president of the United States is not in control of everything. Although this fool, this wannabe autocrat, this wannabe dictator, he wants to be able to control everything that he is not a fan of, that doesn't benefit him. So to hear the words that are coming out of his mouth, it's to play on the fears of the ignorant and the angry.
destruction.
I will be a president who unites us,
Crazy Nancy Pelosi,
who is realistic,
the biggest rally she've ever seen.
practical.
Build an iron dome over our country.
Look at his ear. Like, there was not a scab. There was not any like old blood on the bandage. Like, what is that?
And has common sense.
The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He'd love to have you for dinner.
Like he's talking about movie characters, fictional characters, with in my personal opinion, the fictional bruise on his ear.
And I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families.
The head of the Taliban, you call me Your Excellency. I wonder if he calls the other guy Your Excellency. I doubt it.
I will always honor and never disparage their service.
Our military is not woke. It's just some of the fools on top that are woke.
I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un.
North Korea, Kim Jong-un, I got along very well with him.
Donald Trump, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans.
We will return law and order to our streets.
Separately found liable for committing sexual abuse.
We will launch a new era of safety.
You can always trust me to hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections to the peaceful transfer of power.
We had that horrible, horrible result that we'll never let happen again. The election result, we're never going to let that happen again. They used COVID to cheat. We're never going to let it happen again.
Oh, Jonathan Lemire, that is quite a contrast.
Absolutely. And everything that was coming out of his mouth about how horrible this country is. Yeah, the country definitely has problems. It had a whole lot of problems when he was in office. And it really boggles my mind why people do not remember that. It's crazy to me because millions of people lost their lives when he was in office just because of the C word that he said out of his own mouth he took absolutely zero responsibility for. And if I can find that soundbite, I'm going to play it because he had pretty much said, no, I'm not taking accountability for this. And I remember back then hearing him say that. And I was like, okay, nobody's saying that you were in a lab somewhere and you created this pandemic. So of course, nobody would say that it's your fault that it happened. But he took no accountability for the situation that was going on. And he just wanted to point fingers and blame instead of trying to come up with solutions. But a lot of people, they forget about that because they may have received a stimulus check. Or there may have been some of the people who benefited from the PPP or, things like that. But also, a lot of people went to prison behind that. And it's not his fault that they did that. But I will say that it is his fault that his administration allowed a lot of people who were not even qualified to receive those funds to be able to receive them. So in my personal opinion, sometimes I feel like that was a setup to lock a whole lot of people up. And I'm not saying that because they were maybe minorities that did those things, it was, a setup to get them. Because if you did not own a business prior to the pandemic happening, you were not supposed to be getting any of that money. I'm going on 16 years in business, right? And I remember applying and was told that, yeah, unfortunately, all the money's gone. So we can't help you. And do you know that there are a lot of businesses that folded, that had to go out of business because they just could not survive? I don't hear a lot of those people coming out and blaming Donald Trump for those situations happening, but actually they should be blaming him. But a lot of people are trying to say, oh yeah, I need another stimmy. I need a stimulus check. Let me go ahead and vote for Donald Trump. And a lot of the people that speak ignorantly like that, they've never even voted before. So, but I'm just saying, it's like they want to give Donald Trump credit for PPP and stimulus checks, but then they want to blame Kamala for prices being high for food and other things when the president of the United States doesn't control that. This is a capitalist society that there are some things that are in place to prevent monopolies where business, which I mean, even that is kind of ridiculous because energy companies, they can be monopolies. I don't know about where you live, but I know in my state, there is one electric company and they go up on rates all the time. Like there's no competition. If there was competition, then they wouldn't be able to do the stuff that they do, but they're just pretty much able to get away with it because they're the only company that has the energy supply. But the president doesn't control capitalist greed, and this is a capitalist society. So they can pretty much charge whatever they want. So if they want to charge $10 for a pack of bacon, they can do it. Some people are going to cut back and not buy it, but some people are. It's not the president of the United States that controls those things. It's not the president of the United States that controls a company laying people off or firing people or cutting back. But then because people who are going through things personally, they want to be able to blame someone, they're going to point fingers at the president and the vice president, which she is right now, the vice president.
Quite a contrast.
Claire McCaskill, Eddie Glaude Jr. still with us. And joining the conversation, we have NBC News national affairs analyst and a partner and chief political columnist at Puck, John Heilman, author and NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss, and associate professor of political science at Fordham University, Christina Greer. Good to have you all with us this hour.
So, Willie, the contrast is so great. It is so extreme. It is optimism versus pessimism. It is joy versus resentment. It is looking toward the future versus looking for retribution. It is a striking choice. I will say it seems like no choice to me. It seems very simple. You don't vote for the guy that actually started a riot and is still praising those rioters and now going to be holding fundraisers to benefit those rioters. But this is a close race. Democrats should listen to Michelle Obama and understand this is a close race and they're going to have to fight to the last second.
Yeah.
And so true. People cannot be complacent and feel like, oh, it was a party. So many people showed up. People are fired up. You got to keep that fire going to the polls and not get complacent and feel like, oh, we got this in the bag. Donald Trump is crazy. He's losing it. He's showing it every 5 seconds. He's done. No, it cannot be done until people do what they need to do at the polls, because ironically, a lot of the stuff that Donald Trump says is projection, but it's usually projection about him. So when he calls people crazy, he's speaking about himself, but he'll label other people that. When he says that people are cheating, he's speaking about himself, but he's talking about other people. He actually is right that the election system, it is kind of rigged, because the fact that they have this electoral college that's still in place, that it's almost like it's not the same, but daylight savings time. Why does that still exist? We don't need that anymore, but they still roll the clocks forward every year. And they say it has something to do with when farmers used to farm back in the day and whatever. It's like, well, why are they still doing that now? Because they're messing up my day when they take an hour away out of my day to roll the clocks forward every year. The Electoral College was put in place, and I'm not going to go into the history of that, but times are different now. Why is it that the popular vote doesn't matter, but the Electoral College does? So they can do things or attempt to do things, which is what he attempted to do the last time, to have it sway in his direction so that he could be declared the winner. But the majority did not want him. The majority voted for Hillary Clinton last time. So when he speaks about things being rigged in the election system, there actually is some truth to that, but it's projection because it's usually about him.
Without question. And we did, to the credit of some of the speakers last night, we heard that theme last night, which is the magic that we're all feeling in this room last night, talking about the Democrats who were here. It's great for this week. Now we got to capture it, bottle it, and push forward. Get out on the road tomorrow, volunteer, get out the vote, do all the things that have to be done. It's not about a convention, one of them said. This isn't the end of something. This is the beginning. And I think part of what the party had to accomplish this week was to assure Democrats we've got this. We understand things have felt a little shaky since that debate a couple of months ago. You weren't sure if the president was going to stay in the race. You weren't sure if he got out, who would come next, if that person could do the job. The Democratic Party saying, we've got this. And John Heilman, the speech last night from Vice President Harris went a long way in terms of assuring voters across the country. And she made that contrast that Joe just referenced, which is laying out her bio, talking about her career as a prosecutor. She said, I was always for the people. I was here to represent the people. She threaded that into all the work she's done since then, and then came around and laid out Donald Trump's life and his political career and said he has always been for himself. And there's the contrast.
When Joe Biden went to the debate in Atlanta, Jen O'Malley Dillon came on my podcast, and the campaign was out saying, we've now have our frame for this election. He's all about himself. We're all about you. And one of the things that became evident was that Joe Biden wasn't going to be able to make that case as forcefully as possible, as forcefully as necessary. Last night, Kamala Harris made that case in 7 different ways. And she made it directly in a kind of prosecutorial way, when she did that riff, consider Donald Trump, consider. She sounded very much like the lawyer that she is. But the contrast of we're about you, he's about himself. It was made implicitly and explicitly. It was made directly and indirectly. It was woven throughout. And to go to one of the most striking contrasts, I think, for the thing that I kept hearing from people who were non-political friends of mine last night, I didn't know how hawkish she was on foreign policy, people would say. The language, the use of words like lethal, security, that were just woven throughout her speech, the invocations of, in a very forceful way, of the embrace of the flag, the embrace of normalcy, of patriotism in a kind of unabashed way, that, again, we saw it for 4 straight days here, but her speech last night was a kind of, I won't call it a work of art, but it was a very, people will go back and take that speech apart in a variety of ways and look at all of the different kinds of movements in it that allowed her to keep making those very consistent narrative and contrast points that were throughout these 4 days. She made them in all kinds of ways, just saying really, really effectively.
Yeah, and threading the needle on the question of Gaza, which has hovered over this, saying, quote, to be clear, I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself. Making clear we support Israel, we stand shoulder to shoulder, but we have to stop the suffering in Gaza, saying she's going to work toward a ceasefire deal. Claire, one of the other themes we heard all week, and Vice President Harris really drilled in last night, was that we're not going backward. And I think that gets to a sentiment that almost everybody in this country feels, which is we're exhausted by
and that is it. I know I am. That's one of the main reasons why I'm even sticking to this topic. I am exhausted with hearing about Donald Trump. I mean, let me try and hold back tears. I got a call yesterday that one of my aunts passed away. She is years upon years younger than Donald Trump. She was not sick to our knowledge. And there are people dropping every day that were full of life. And here, this hateful, old racist still lives and breathes to pretty much exhaust us. Like, why are you still existing in our presence and you want to be the leader of the free world for your own benefit? Leave us alone. And I do believe that that's why it's not surprising that so many people who said, yeah, I voted for him the first 2 times that he ran, and I just can't do it anymore. And they're saying it out loud, and they're not doing it in private out of fear. They're speaking out because they are tired of it. The exhaustion is real when it comes to Donald Trump.
This. We don't want to wake up every morning and see what the president said or did or tweeted or who he insulted or how he embarrassed us. And she's saying effectively, we got to go that way. We can't go back there.
You know, this is what really Trump is struggling with, because overnight, Kamala Harris became the candidate of change. And if you look historically at presidential elections, people who make up their mind at the end have a tendency to go towards the candidate they think is most likely to change things. And she is now the candidate of change. You know how happy the campaign was this morning when headlines across the country were a new way forward? She is no longer somebody who is the vice president. She is a presidential candidate. And, you know, the contrast that you've referred to, John, I thought one of the most effective ways she did it when she said the only client I've ever had is the people, which is very unusual for a lawyer. But she can say that with complete accuracy. And then she turned and said, the only client he's ever had is himself. So I think they've pulled off something that for a sitting vice president who you think will be cloaked in incumbency, she's now the new kid in town.
All right, guys. So think about that. And that is so powerful. She says, the only clients that I ever had when I was a prosecuting attorney, was the people, and the only client that he's had is himself. Like, that is so fitting for the role that she stepped into, and so fitting about who he is and why he's doing what he's doing. And we'll get into more of that later, but I really wanted to share those clips from the RNC and the DNC just to show the huge difference between the tone of everything. And I just am very optimistic, but I'm not going to be complacent. So I'll just say it again, as I've been saying over and over again. Make sure that you are registered. If you have already been registered, make sure they have not purged you from the voter rolls, because yes, that indeed is happening. And find out when early voting is in your county and vote early. Don't wait until election day. Don't wait until November the 2nd. Go ahead and get it done. You never know what's going to come up that day. Who knows? You might be sick and you're not able to make it to vote. I'm not speaking anything over anyone, but I'm just saying, if you can vote early, why not? So guys, I just wanted to share that. You can let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for being here, liking and subscribing. I'm Beth, just being beautifully honest. So until next time, I wanted to keep it brief, beautiful. And now I'm going to say bye.